Hi guys, it's about 12 minutes before 9 Eastern. It's 12 minutes before 8 Central. I'm Stephen Boyle on this August 9th, 2012. Well, before we start, if you hear this breeze in the background, it's my fan. I'm warm. You know, it's no wind or anything. I'm not outside or anything. Now, I will be answering some questions here that some people have been posting on my YouTube, videos here, or my last one that I posted. I'll answer a couple of questions that people had. And then, also, I want to say something else. Yesterday, someone expressed, I don't know if it was anger or what, it was some sort of criticism. Just to remind everyone, I don't really take criticism too well. I know I should take it better, but anyway, someone said something along the lines that my forecast was garbage, my forecast for this storm system. And also someone mentioned, or the same person mentioned, that it was 300 hours away, and that the Canadian and the European model have this thing doing nothing, and all of this other stuff. Well, first of all, before I talk a little bit more about this guy, we have Tropical Depression number 7, and this should be strengthening into a tropical storm by tomorrow, within the next 24 hours. So this is my response to the guy. I forget what it was, but I blocked him because it wasn't really anything about, that he was criticized. It wasn't really the fact that he was criticizing my forecast. It was just saying that, what I said was garbage. Didn't really take that too well. In any case, this is what I have to say. I'm sorry if it came across like I didn't know it was 300 hours out. I knew it was that far out. I knew that there was a possibility that this thing could not or may not hit the East Coast. But models since Saturday have been the same model has been saying since Saturday that this thing would affect the East Coast. Where on the East Coast, I'm not sure. I've seen between Nova Scotia and Georgia, okay? And I swore I said that. I didn't say one specific region, okay? Maybe the models I showed it going to Nova Scotia, but I swore I mentioned that it was more than one area. So, and there's still a possibility that this thing could hit the East Coast, and it's still a quite good possibility. Although the National Hurricane Center has this thing going in a track like this, and it looks quite similar to Ernesto, I think they're just trying to protect themselves because of the way how the models are going at this point. I think once this thing starts strengthening, and once this thing gets itself together, I think we'll start seeing a track more to the north and west, and I think this could potentially be affecting the Caribbean. Okay, I think that's the first stop that this storm will take, is the Caribbean, and then the East Coast will be where this thing bears its eyes next. And like I said, where exactly, I'm not sure. There's also a threat, though. I would say a minor threat, for a very slight threat for Mexico, the Yucatan. There is a slight possibility that this could also affect the Gulf of Mexico. We'll have to see what happens with that. So overall, this is the ensemble models, and the reason why that the National Hurricane Center is being very vigilant about this, and I would be too, and I am being very vigilant about it as well, is essentially half of the models are saying that this thing will move north and west, and half of the models are saying that this thing will move west. So what do? Well, you sort of take something in between. You don't say it's going to go directly west, but you don't say it's going to go directly north and west. They're saying something more along the lines like this at this point. So I did something similar, but they have it a little bit more south. I have it a little bit more north. Essentially, it's the same thing, though. So that's the models here. I really don't agree with this one down here. That is, I would have to say that's a bunch of bogus at this point. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but I just don't see it. Also, this BAMS, I don't know. It's possible that it could take the same exact track as Ernesto, but like I said, I just don't see it at this point. These are the intensities, and yeah, it's pretty similar to, well, actually not similar. It looks like this thing will increase in intensity over the next several days. That's overall what I'm seeing here. Now, there are these two models up here that say that this thing will become a Cat 1 around hour 108 to 120, which is about 4 or 5 days away. I mean, it's possible. I mean, this is that CHF5 model again and that ship model again. It's possible. I mean, nothing is clear-cut at this point. And I mean, I do think that this thing will become a hurricane, but when exactly, I'm not sure. There's also a lot of islands that this thing will be hitting, so it's not going to be able to really strengthen very well fast. I think when this thing becomes a hurricane, it'll probably be further out. I think it'll probably be closer to around the time of maybe way out, more closer to hour 240 than anything here. So, yes, these two models could be pointing at something, and overall you do see this general trend towards strengthening, which is good, but I don't think it's going to strengthen that fast. These are the GFS ensembles, and this is yet again another reason why I'm not really saying exactly that this thing will be moving north and west, nor am I saying it's going to move exactly west. So, here is why you can sort of see some models have this going north and west like this, and some of the models are having it go out like that. So, essentially it's cut half and half, and that's the reason why we're not really certain at this point. But overall, and I think the National Hurricane Center has to track something like that. And you can see the national, or the GFS, I mean, is a little bit more rational. They don't have a track going down like that. I just don't see that at all. So I'll just have to see what happens with this. But for right now, I do think as time works its way onward, I think we will start seeing these tracks shift northward. And eventually, I think it will probably take a track something like this. But I'm just trying to be careful here because, you know, it's what the models are saying, and I don't want to really put myself in a little hole here. So, you know, I'm just waiting and seeing here. Overall, I think the general trend is for this thing to continue to increase in intensity. And yeah, there is a possibility, and actually I think this is a little bit more reasonable what this AP12 and AP03 are doing. They have this thing becoming a hurricane around hour 180 to 204. What's this AP10? Where is that moving? AP10 is this one right here, or this AP03, one of the ones that are moving north and west. It's possible. Okay, I do see it being a possibility. We'll have to see what happens over the course of the next several days. This is my track. Okay, and again, I'm trying to be very careful, trying to, you know, make sure I don't dig myself into a hole here that I can't dig myself out of. Right now, there's a possibility that this thing could move north and west towards the east coast. There's a possibility that it could move west towards the Gulf of Mexico and, yet again, the Yucatan Peninsula. But I think this time the Gulf Coast, if it were to move west, would be at a higher threat. So if it were to move just plain old west, I think it would eventually affect the Gulf Coast region of the United States. So I do think that the United States might be affected by this particular storm, but we'll have to see what happens. Again, it's still pretty far out before anything happens. So overall, that's what's going on with this particular system. However, we do have a couple people had some questions here. We had a question from Nulichel Figueroa. He was asking about Gordon and Puerto Rico. How would it affect Puerto Rico? Well, here's my answer for you, Nulichel. I do believe that this thing could affect Puerto Rico, whether that's directly or indirectly. I'm not sure. Over the next, over the course of the next 10 days, he's on over the next 4 or 5 days, he's on vacation down there. Yeah, I do think that this will be affecting Puerto Rico. And like I said, whether it's directly or indirectly, I'm not sure. But overall, the general consensus is whether it's just some slight winds or, full force winds of the storm. Because, again, I don't know how strong the storm will be at the point when it's around Puerto Rico. It could be a tropical storm. It could be a hurricane. It could be just a tropical depression. If it were a tropical storm when it was around Puerto Rico, you may get full force tropical storm winds. Or you could get tropical depression winds if it's either a little bit to the north or a little bit to the south. And you may also get tropical depression winds, again, if it's north or south of Puerto Rico. If it's a Category 1, you could get full force hurricane winds, or you could just get tropical storm winds if it's just to the north or the south of Puerto Rico. So it really depends upon the location and how strong this thing is going to become. So overall, that is my general feeling on this particular system here. Again, I did mention that this thing could be a Category 1 by Sunday. The only reason why I said that is because there is a period of time where, particularly if it were to take this track, I mean, it would have tons of time for strengthening. But there's a period in time when it's not hitting any land, so it's possible by the time it hits here, it could be a strong tropical storm or a Category 1 storm. But I know once it hits these areas in here, it will weaken. So we'll have to see what happens. And time will only tell. That's essentially the overall gist of things. Oh, and LP Junior 537 has a question. He says, should he cancel his honeymoon in the first 2 weeks of September? Well, really, time will only tell for that too. I mean, there is a wave out coming off the coast of Africa right now, and again, some of the models have where this thing will go. I'm not even sure at this point. I mean, some of the models are. I mean, there was one person that said that this would go into North Carolina, but again, it's so far away. And like I said, the only reason why I was a little bit more confident about this one was because it was being consistently said that this would hit New England. Now I'm a little bit less, or not New England, the East Coast I meant. But now I'm a little bit less confident about that because there are some models that are taking it through, down more west and into Mexico or into the Gulf Coast or something like that. So still some things that we got to look through. But again, LP Junior 537, just watch for future updates is the best I have to give for you. And again, it usually takes 12 days from when it's in the coast of Africa to hit the United States. So it's still 12 days away, essentially. So we'll have to see what happens. I'll be continuing to update my forecast for the tropics, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday. I hope you all watch my other forecast on the weather across the country. Take care.